All righty, welcome back. We're here for another episode of Two Plane Sports. We're going to return back to the Who Dat edition. Today, we're going to be covering Gentry Williams, which I feel like is one of the most anticipated recruits in the 2021 class. Between him, Kobe McKenzie, Jaron Kanik, it seems like a lot of people are excited, and we are all excited about him as well. At this time of recording, we're about to hit 3,500 subscribers, so let's get up to 3,600. If you hadn't already, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, because you never know with us what days we're exactly posting. It's typically in the mornings, but some weeks it varies, just depending on our schedules. So be sure to do that so you can keep up to date with everything that we post. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and like us on Facebook. We're posting constantly with recruits announcing their scholarship offers, their intention to visit, their official dates, and various other things. And if you were following us, you would see that Richard Young actually made it official on Twitter. He's slated to attend March 5th, which is going to be a giant weekend for recruits visiting the University of Oklahoma. And I feel like the list is only going to get bigger. We're going to continue to talk more and more about that as we approach next weekend, and we're going to keep you guys up to date who's going to be there and the results and who we think could commit there. I feel like there's going to be a couple commits, so be sure hit the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with that. So going into Gentry Williams, I feel like we've talked about him. He's one of the most talked about kids that we talked about on this podcast. I mean, because it was a roller coaster recruitment. His parents OU alums, so naturally OU had an upper hand in his recruitment with the previous coaching regime. They recruited him hard. He seemed to me, he seemed like he was more of looking for a reason to leave in a way, kind of like Chris McClellan, but not totally the same. And this new staff came in and kind of shored him up and locked him down. So for anyone that doesn't know, Gentry, he's a 6-foot athlete, 170-pound kid out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, out of Booker T. Washington. He's a 4-star, number 93 overall, number 11 corner in the class out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He had various other offers from obviously Oklahoma, Arkansas, Florida, USC, Baylor, Georgia, and various other Power 5 schools, which, I mean, you name it, if he wanted to go there, he could have went. So he was highly sought after, and rightfully so. He played all 4 years at varsity, but at various positions. He started off freshman and sophomore year as Booker T's quarterback, which, he started off there starting out as a freshman. It was kind of rough. But he got switched over to his natural position. He was playing both sides for a portion of it, but finally he was able to switch over to the defensive back, and he really excelled there. Junior year, he played a game or two, I believe, and tore his ACL and missed the rest of the year. And his senior season, he ended up playing the entire year. A kid that put up a ton of stats, a ton of yards, and even last year, while he was a corner, he did play a little bit of offense. He had 256 yards of total offense last year, and he ended up having 44 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss. He was all over the place, and a kid that's a 6A state champion in the 400-meter dash, and he's also a state runner-up in the 200-meter dash. So a kid that can, is a 2-sport athlete, played multiple positions, extremely fast, and is recovering from an injury. But now at this point, he had his junior year, fall junior year, and that is a couple years ago. I feel like he's finally turned the corner. He already played 1 year on it, and I feel like that's not even going to be a consideration in his mind anymore. So I think his ceiling, he's probably the most natural corner that in this class that the Sooners got. And that I feel like his ceiling is extremely high, and he's a great, playing man-to-man coverage, can play some zone, can make some open field tackles, and extremely athletic. Jose, what do you think about him and his outlook and the fact that he's a Sooner?
Yeah, it's great that he's finally a Sooner. I know when all the stuff with Lincoln Riley happened, we discussed his potential decommitment because he had committed like right before everything went down, and it seemed like his recruitment was still reopened in a way after Lincoln left. So there was a little bit of uncertainty, but it's great to have him. I think, like you said, he's got a really high ceiling. He will, in my opinion, he will have to do 1 year as a redshirt. I don't think that he will be pushing for starting time as a freshman. That's not a bad thing. It's not. I think it's more. It is really crazy to see true freshmen. I think, especially now, how college football works with the transfer portal and how easy it is for people to move around. We're probably not going to see too many true freshmen starting. So it's not like a knock on him. It's just simply that position has good players, more experienced players, and he'll get to learn from them. And hopefully that's exactly what he does. He builds on learning, and his body will ultimately transform after a year in with OU's training program under Schmitty. And since he's not an early enrollee, he is a little bit behind some of the other guys at the end of the day, which is going to probably impact him going into the fall. But I think you're right about his knee injury. It's not something that he should be concerned about. It's been a year and a half removed and he played all last season, his final season in high school. So he should be good to go. It'll just be a matter of when, and hopefully he's a 2 or 3 year starter by the time his sophomore year comes around, or freshman year.
Yeah, he's a kid who gave every single one of us a scare. I think we all actually came around the show and predicted he was going to go elsewhere after. And it's a good thing we're wrong about that, because you described a kid who's very freaky athletic. As he played wide receiver, quarterback, a little bit of running back, corner. He's also running track at a very high level. I do agree with Hose that he probably won't crack the lineup as a freshman, but I don't think it would be the most crazy thing if he were to. I kind of see him, if he were to get thrown in, it's probably because some of those transfers that we've talked about before in Colden or Morrison, or even DJ Graham or anybody really is kind of getting beat up out there. He's a guy you can throw in and probably make a lot of plays immediately, which is it's nice to have a kid who probably could play legitimately well as a freshman, but you don't have to with the depth that we have. But I also agree with Hose that as far as 2 or 3 year starter, he's a freak athlete. He's a fan favorite already. It seems like. I think we're all excited to see what he's going to do in his college career at OU.
Yeah, and a couple things, a couple different topics. And going back to his knee, I think on his last official visit, which was either the weekend before National Signing Day or the weekend after, it's one of the last 2 weekends of January when he visited, there was a little bit of a story of where he was talking with Schmitty and, talking about his knee. And Schmitty already, since he wasn't on campus, kind of gave him some advice. Hey, you need to start working on this. You need to start doing these exercises to strengthen your knee. And we're not going to treat this as, we're not going to worry about it until it becomes a problem, or if it ever does. So Schmitty's already got it in his mind that we're not worrying about this, and you need to do these exercises on your own at home, before you get here, to strengthen that knee to 110% before he even steps on campus. So that type of thing that Schmitty is already, if he's doing that with Gentry Williams, he's doing that with every other kid that's not on campus right now. And even probably going to be doing that with kids that are committed in the 2023 class and so on, where he's going to start getting these kids to do these exercises and workouts and other things. So they become, when they show up on campus, whether it's in January or the summer, they're already ahead. And I think that's really a good plan. And I don't know if Benny Wiley was doing that, but just hearing that Schmitty is doing that, and that's the way he thinks, we're going to see the results are going to, we're going to see it. Another thing with him is, we've been covering other transfers and recruits in the cornerback room, and we already talked about that. I think some of the kids that are already on the roster have had a disservice with Roy Manning being their cornerback coach, because he wasn't even a corner to begin with, and he's been a linebacker coach everywhere he went. He played linebacker, and the kids that are already on campus were at a disservice. But with Gentry, the reason why I felt like he was going to leave was because, one, obviously when the coaches left, but even whenever Roy Manning was there, I think he knew deep down that he wasn't truly a cornerback coach. And I think he only was keeping OU up there because his parents went there. He grew up in Tulsa, and he's a Sooner fan at heart. And I think he was just doing it because that's what deep down he wanted to do. But he knew
that's a whole hell of a lot of speculation, bud.
It's a whole lot. But here's the deal. It makes a lot of sense that he wasn't 100% sold, because I just feel like even if you're a Sooner fan deep down and you want to go be a Sooner, but if the position coach isn't great and you feel like you can go get developed out of Florida or USC or wherever, that would be hard to turn down, in my opinion. And I just think because kids are looking at this as a business decision. And as soon as Jay Valai got hired on officially with Brent Venables, they closed down his recruitment so fast. And I think Gentry realized that Valai is the true cornerback coach. He played the position. He's, coached at Alabama with Nick Saban. And if Venables trusts him, he should too. And I really think I think at this point, I bet he feels a lot more comfortable with Valai than Roy Manning. And that's all my speculation. That's all reading, from the outside and just kind of what I would be thinking if I were him. And I might be totally wrong, but I feel like that was the biggest deal with him. And I feel like he's probably feeling a lot more comfortable because his whole recruitment, I don't think the coaching staff was putting in the work that he was expecting them to do. And that's what drug this out so long with the previous staff. And as soon as Venables and Valai got in there, they locked it down. That's just my opinion. I might be totally wrong, but I think it really helped get these two guys to be coaches for the Sooners.
I mean, that might have been the case. My biggest concern after Lincoln left was that Valai wasn't the coach that Gentry wanted to play for, not because he's a bad coach by any means. And I think that's still to be determined. I've said it multiple times. That's my biggest concern with Coach Valai. But when you look at his recruitment, Alabama wasn't a top choice for him. And going into the season and going through his recruitment, all expectations were that Valai was going to stick around at Alabama. So that was my concern. Now, with your speculation, I think it's not crazy that after Lincoln left, he maybe felt more comfortable with Coach Venables, and then once Valai got hired onto the staff, he might have seen, or something might have been different after speaking with them. But I also think Coach Vinny was an impactful part of his recruitment to Oklahoma. After Lincoln left and Venables was hired on, I think that was one of the first visits that they made. And Vinny was on that recruiting visit, if I remember correctly, with the picture that Gentry posted. So he bought into the system as a full, and the vision that Brent has moving forward and what he could be a part of, and hopefully in the SEC by the end of his time at Oklahoma. That's still, again, to be determined, but there's opportunity for him to be a starter at some point if he puts in the work. And hopefully the knee isn't an issue. And I think it's great that Schmitty is giving him pointers, because if Benny Wiley was doing that or not, it doesn't matter. If Schmitty's pretty much trying to make sure that these guys aren't too far behind by the time they get to campus, because not every person is going to be an early enrollee, or not every transfer is going to move over immediately, like we're seeing with CJ Colden. You got to make sure that once they do get to you, you're not having to catch them up to the rest of the team that's been there for 6 months or 5 months, however long it would be at that point, right? So a lot of good things are happening, but with Gentry and ultimately making the decision in Oklahoma, I think it fell on it was a more comfortable decision. I think you're right in saying, like, he was kind of the other places, he was trying to find a reason why he shouldn't stay, and there was no one that sold him enough as to why he should leave Oklahoma. The other staff just wasn't doing a good enough job to sell him on why he should stay. It was kind of a mix. No one was doing well enough job to pull him out, but the past staff wasn't doing a good enough job to solidify his commitment, keep him for sure.
Well, BV said in his own press conference that, because he was asked about Gentry Williams, and because everybody did, or there was legitimate concern that he was leaving, and Brent Venables kind of put that to bed almost immediately, saying, like, they were always confident. They always felt like he was their recruit to lose. He was, he's got Sooner ties everywhere. He's born Sooner fan. There's, he posted a picture as a baby of him in the Sooner onesie and stuff. Like it's scary on the outside, but I kind of trust Venable. I guess we were probably wrong in thinking he was leaving, and obviously we were because he ended up sticking around. But I don't know how much of a fear we should have actually had. But anyway, that's all over. He's here. I think we all agree he's with a much better coaching staff under Brent Venables, under Jay Valai, than he would have been with Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch, and Roy Manning. I think the fact that Brum pulled up a couple shows ago that Roy Manning never played the position is ridiculous. I don't understand how he's coaching corners having never played that in his life. I guess it's like making a tight ends coach an offensive line coach because there's blocking that tight ends have to do too. But it's not the same thing at all. So it's really weird how that worked out, how he landed that job he did as a corners coach and how he's still a corners coach, but whatever. I think Gentry Williams is a year 2 starter, and I think he's going to do big things.
I wonder if there's any thought in the coaches' minds of utilizing that speed in the safety position. I know we talk about the safety position a lot, and there's some speculation behind it, but both of those positions are pretty much open right now. There's no returning starters there anymore. So, I mean, I think most people are kind of sliding in Key as a starter for one of the safety positions, and the other one's up in the air. But if he's going to play as a freshman, I think that's where he would be best fit right now, just because he wouldn't need to be. It's more of reacting to the ball, which he's really good at, and he's got the speed to recover on any deep bombs.
What about a return guy? Kick return, punt return.
Yeah, that's another position too. There's not much. I think that's one of the things that's like hard to predict, right? Because all of these guys have speed, but speed isn't the only thing. They got to be able to find the holes in a very crowded field.
I prefer him play safety as a freshman than a return man because I feel like making him a return man would just burn a red shirt on a returner when at the end of the day they're kind of a dime a dozen. I mean, they're all not Devin Hesters out there, but I mean, you need a guy who's sure-handed, who's smart, understands his surroundings, and can run fast.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree. I would hate to lose a red shirt because of returning, but if that's what we have to do, I mean, that's what we have to do. But I feel like they're
Devin Hester College Edition, then we're all going to be content. Yeah, then it's not a burnt red shirt.
No, it definitely isn't. I mean, I want the best returner back there because special teams killed OU. Last year, ever since Beamer left, it's been downhill and it's not been great. So I think that's going to definitely change. But I mean, yeah, getting him on campus, I'm glad he's going to be a Sooner. It just speaks to Brent Venables and his mindset of locking down in-state recruits. And, that was his, like you said, I mean, that was one of his priorities, and that's his, one of his deals going forward. I do agree. I don't think he'll see a ton of playing time this year. I think he could use a red shirt, put on a little weight, get, work out with Schmitty. I feel like a year under Schmitty and Valai and just get coached would be huge for him. But at the end of the day, I don't know, in the secondary outside of Woody Washington, I don't feel like anyone has a spot locked down. No one played well enough outside of Washington to be able to say, this is my spot, I'm returning back to this. At the end of the day, I think every kid is going to get a fair shake. If you're in the defensive back room, cornerback or safety, you're going to get a fair shake and a fair opportunity to start at one of those positions. And I know there's a lot of veteran leadership coming in with Morrison and Colden. And while I didn't slate Williams to be a starter in our position group breakdown video, if he comes in and produces, I mean, you just got to start him. The odds of that happening aren't high, in my opinion, but it's possible.
I agree. I mean, it should be a wide open room, and he has the talent to start. It wouldn't be the craziest thing of all time if he were to start. I absolutely agree that Woody Washington probably has to do a lot in spring ball / summer ball to screw that up and pull himself out of a starting spot, because he really is was, kind of is, like his whole. It seems like ever since he was put into the game for OU, years ago, he's been pretty damn solid. He's been one of our more reliable guys. So yeah, he'd have to do a lot, in my opinion, to screw up. So I absolutely agree with Woody, and that's something we all talked about in the position group breakdown. Is Woody? We all penciled him in as a starter. The only other guy in the secondary that I think pretty much has it locked up too is, I would say, Key Lawrence is penciled in as a starter somewhere too. I think he showed enough real good ball on tape to start, whether it's corner or safety next year, especially with the lack of safeties, as I was mentioned. I feel like he would have to screw up a lot too to not be penciled in as a safety starter. But outside of that, if he goes out in spring ball and he outplays DJ Graham, there's no reason he shouldn't start over DJ Graham. He shouldn't start over CJ Colden, Trey Morrison. The list goes on and on. But Jamarian Burt, there's a lot of talent in there that can play corner. But let's just let the best one play. And Gentry, in my opinion, has the capability to win a starting job, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. Jose, do you have something?
I think Brandon pretty much did a great job of explaining overall. Like there's not, you guys both said it, there's not anyone that should feel safe in coming into the year and going into spring and summer. You're competing for a spot, and it's not just because there's so many new people. That happens every year in college, right? It's because there's a full, fresh restart to the program. Even on the offensive side, no one should feel comfortable and safe that they're still going to be the starting center. And, Andrew Rame, I think everyone on the offensive line should be scared and potentially losing their spot if they're not improving. And I think a lot of people have mentioned, we've mentioned it a couple of times, a lot of their lack of production was potentially the play calling on the offensive side of the ball and the lack of development overall in their strength with Benny Wiley. I think a lot of those things are going to be addressed with the restart. But if someone that comes in is better, they're not just going to put you in because because of seniority. That's just not going to be a thing anymore. So we're going to see, I think it's going to be great to see over the next few months, not just for the spring game. We're going to get to see, we have a lot more visibility now with social media and this staff, because the previous staff just was not a big fan of like putting things out there. But it seems like we're seeing a lot of like cool videos that OU football is putting out on Twitter and Instagram, and Venables, like Toby said, is a lot more open when he's answering questions. So we're going to know and learn a lot more about where this team is at every couple months or every month whenever Venables gets to speak.
Yeah. Now I see Gentry getting some playing time in the beginning of the season because, he's got that 4 games that he can play. And I see him, coming in for, second halves of games that OU starts running away with. So it'll be good to get him some experience, but I don't think we're going to see him past 4 games. So with that, with our over-under game, it's hard for me to say, but, counting those snaps in those early season games, assuming that OU's kind of blowing him out and he can get some playing time, I'm going to set his overall snaps, and this includes special teams if he's going to be on special teams, because he could be a good gunner. He can tackle in the open field and various other things. I'm going to set it at 12% of total, defensive and special team snaps. With his 4 games, I might be high, I might be low. I don't really know. I'm kind of shooting in the dark. Brandon, what do you think?
I think it's fair at 12 to 15%, because I think he will get in those 4 games and mop up time. And I can see him playing kind of all over the place in that mop up time, because why not throw him out there as a gunner if you're winning 42-6 and see what he's like as a gunner, and why not throw him at corner if you're up 42-6 and see what he looks like there. So I can see, that 12 to 15% range seems fair to me, at least right away for him.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go under still, but it'll be like just shy of 12. I don't know. This one's hard to predict just because in my mind I've already slotted him as a for sure red shirt out of this recruiting class, and it's not like he'll be the only one, but there's still, even though the secondary isn't as deep as other positions on the defensive side of the ball, it's not that lacking either. There's, with the transfers and the returning players, he's got to learn. He's got to come in, learn, get more athletic, gain some weight. I don't strengthen up his knee if that's a concern of his, even though it might not be Schmitty's or Venables. If he's still worried about it, then get to work on that, so that once he does get on the playing field, he's not stressed about it anymore.
He's about to
Rico,
give it to that pillow.
Yeah, Rico making himself comfortable, trying to take a nap. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I'm going to go slightly under. I'm going to go around that 10 to 11%. As far as like a total tackles mark, I'm going to set it at 6 total tackles.
Sure, yeah. I'll give him 10. I'll give him 10 just in case 10. He's playing as on special teams during those early games.
Yeah, I feel like, going way back whenever, we were a lot smaller, and maybe only a handful of you that are watching this video now actually watched us, but the Who Dat that we broke down Danny Stutzman, I felt like I was giving out similar numbers. I haven't gone back and watched that video, but I feel like my numbers that I'm giving out now are about this equivalent to that. And
maybe he'll be the next Danny Stutzman.
Maybe. I mean, that's what Stutzman ended up being, a big time contributor, and he's going to be even a bigger contributor this year. We might be pleasantly surprised, not doubting him. I feel like a year to redshirt never hurts anyone.
I think, we all agree. I wouldn't be shocked if he cracked it.
Yeah. It's one of those deals where we don't think, but it's not surprising if he did. Brandon or Jose, do you guys have any final thoughts before Brandon does his end of video challenge? What do you got for us today?
Tell us your thoughts on Gentry. We all have him obviously as a redshirt freshman, likely take a redshirt year, build, develop, grow, get stronger, all that. And I see him as a year 2 starter. I think we all see him as a year 2 starter. Do you guys agree with that, or are there some of you out there who see him as a day 1 immediate starter? Where do you have Gentry as a freshman?
Yeah, that's fair. You heard him. Comment below. Let us know what you think. We're interested to hear what you guys have to say. If you hadn't already, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Facebook. And, we've been really growing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Downloads are going through the roof. Help us keep that train rolling. I mean, not only support us on YouTube, go over there and listen to it. Whenever you need to leave the house and you're on the go, you can get notified and you can just listen to us and you don't have to look at Jose. I mean, what's better than that? So anyway, just be sure to let us know what you think, like the video, spread the word, and we're going to keep going, and we'll keep more content coming your way.